Ready?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, 6:30.
All right. Call the meeting to order for the July 8th Planning Zoning Commission meeting. Join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
David, please call roll.
Yes, we are without Shannon, we're without Doyle, and we are without Wyeth Irvin today. With 4 members present, there is a quorum. So you're okay to proceed with the meeting?
All right. First, the consent agenda.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we need to do an oath of office today.
Oh,
We would have done this last month, but he was not here. Please raise your right hand. I, Chaston Parks,
I, Chaston Parks,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess all of the qualifications
that I possess all the qualifications
required by the city of Kearney
required by the city of Kearney
and the state of Missouri
and the state of Missouri
as prescribed by law.
as prescribed
Use
by
the same thing I
law.
did. For the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
For the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Missouri,
and of the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of this state
provisions of all laws of this state
affecting cities of the 4th class,
affecting cities of the 4th class,
and then the ordinances of the city of Kearney, Missouri,
and the ordinances of the city of Kearney, Missouri,
and faithfully demean myself
and faithfully demean myself
in the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner.
in the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay. We're good to go.
all right. Any discussion of minutes from last?
Move for approval.
I'll second. The motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. So old business, we have the Westwood North preliminary plat, which we tabled last meeting. Do you have an update for us, David?
Yeah, I'd like to get to the aerial, at least our plan sheet. If I can find it. There we go. Okay, so Westwood North preliminary plat was tabled from last month's meeting to tonight. Thought it would give an opportunity to make some modifications to the plan and come back to you guys today with a plan updated. We did get additional information and some modifications submitted that include the following: a lot data table sheet that had lot numbers, lot areas, and lot perimeter. The lot data table sheets included in your packet. An additional lot in phase 3 at the north corner of Westwood Drive and Stella Circle, towards the north end of the subdivision. A 50-foot right-of-way dedication along Nation Road, as was requested. The previous version had 30-foot dedication. And then Eldridge Drive between Westwood Drive and Nation Road. So that's the street section from Nation Road passing the community pool over to Westwood Drive, which is the main north-south spine road. Was designed to residential collector street standard, so the right-of-way width was 60 feet and the pavement width a little bit wider as well. There are, okay, Shannon Wire has arrived to the meeting. We'll note that. There are 3 items that do not meet minimum design standards. And I'll go into a little bit of detail. So one would be the 50-foot landscape buffer along lots that back up to Nation Road and northeast 162nd Street. They added a 25-foot landscape buffer proposed along the backs of those lots on their plan. Is included as part of each of those lots. Because the lots back up to a public street, 50-foot buffer is still required. Of course, they don't believe that that code section applies, but we do believe that it applies. So we were trying to come up with an option that was still compliant, but that also kind of helped with the plan that they presented. And so we thought of an option to, instead of have the 25-foot buffer located on the back of the lots, because the lots back up directly to the street right away, then a buffer would be required, but to include that 25 foot in an open space tract between the lot and the right of way, basically separating the two so the lots aren't directly up to the right of way. And we thought that that was a way to still comply with the code and still kind of reduce the impact of a 50-foot buffer that a 50-foot buffer would have on a subdivision. Developer noted that maintenance costs would be an issue for the HOA because it's quite a long section along Nation Road and along Northeast 162nd Street. So then we thought, well, maybe that property could be dedicated to the city as an open space tract. If that's the case, then rather than 25-foot, 15-foot tract would be acceptable to the city. Reason we had 25 noted was because they included 25-foot on their amended plan that they submitted. I included up on the table an updated staff recommendation list. You'll see the 25-foot changed to 15-foot, highlighted in yellow on those recommendations. And then another item that does not meet standards would be the 10-foot wide pedestrian ways for the blocks that exceed 900 feet in length. If you remember, phase one had a block north of Ellis Way, so that's an east-west block at the south end of the subdivision. Then the north block from there, north of Grange Street, and in phase four, east of Ella Way, so that's the long north-south block that's pretty much along the west edge of the subdivision. The developer said at the meeting last month that those lots are less desirable and they have security concerns with people having the ability to go between lots or behind lots. The packet of information that we received from them kind of reiterates that fact. They also note it doesn't do much to improve the walkability. I think Ron might talk to that a little bit because of the increased steps that someone might have to walk. It isn't much further than just using the street. Still a code requirement, still listed as a minimum design standard. Doesn't have to be a sidewalk through that pedestrian way. Pedestrian way is just defined as an open space area or an open area that allows for public access. So there's not necessarily a requirement that there be a sidewalk, just that it stay an open area for people to traverse the block. And then the third item would be cul-de-sacs over 500 feet. They had, the commission does have discretion on when it comes to cul-de-sac lengths, if there's a good reason or a good design to have those included. Their plan showed 4 on the plan that exceed 500 feet, those being Nova Circle, which is at the very north end. I guess I can show the mouse here. So coming off of Northeast 162nd Street, this cul-de-sac is Nova Circle. Stella Circle, which comes northeast off of Westwood Drive. And then they had Collinwood Circle and Izzy Circle. I'm not sure which one's which, the longer one. Izzy Circle would be this cul-de-sac to the south, and then Collinwood Circle in between those. Staff still recommends that if the commission approves cul-de-sac streets longer than 500 feet, that there be a connection between Stella and Nova Circle. The reason for that, it would reduce the number of cul-de-sacs by 1. So instead of 4 cul-de-sacs, there would be 3 that exceed 500 feet. It would shorten the Nova Circle cul-de-sac by probably, I don't know, a couple of 100 feet potentially. And then it would provide another way in and out for those residents along Nova Circle. And even the rest of the subdivision, there'd be 2 entrances and exits off of Northeast 162nd Street, which is just better for everyone, more access that there is. Their engineer sent me a drawing showing that that may create issues, slope issues, create issues with tall basements and some fill on one side that they would like to do if they were to do that. I had our engineer look at that plan, and the street section they had was about a 4% slope, and that we do allow streets that are steeper than that, up to 10% grade. That's probably a pretty steep street, but still it could be steeper and soften the impact on the potential houses along that street. So staff still recommends that. I don't think it's necessarily any possibility that connection not be made. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the Westwood North preliminary plat with following conditions. Now, the conditions we have listed are similar to the ones that we had last month, but some of them they have addressed already, and we note that in the staff report, and I'll make note of that and when I list those out. So lot data table showing acreage and size of each lot as required by code, which was provided by them. Create 15-foot wide open space tracks along and abutting Nation Road Northeast 162nd Street to be owned by or dedicated to the city. So we ensure that no lots back up directly to either public street in lieu of the 50-foot buffer, which would be required by code. Include 10-foot wide pedestrian ways for blocks that exceed 900 feet in length as required by the minimum design standards in the code. Eldridge Drive between Westwood Drive and Nation Road meet minimum residential collector street standards as required, as they have provided that on their plan. Connect Stella Circle and Nova Circle with access to Northeast 162nd Street to remain, to provide for greater convenience to the public and more effective police and fire protection, which is the staff recommendation. 50-foot wide right-of-way dedication from section line along Nation Road north of 100, Nation Road north to Northeast 162nd Street for compliance with our comprehensive plan and to match existing Nation Road right-of-way to the south as required by code, which is something they did provide. We just still list it because it was included in the last staff report. And submit a revised preliminary plat, including all the pages. The submittal we had, they updated page 1, but pages 2 through 4 go into other parts of the plan. It was zoomed in, and they weren't able to update that for their resubmittal modifications. And that revised preliminary plan include all the conditions approved by Planning Zoning Commission approved tonight. Those are the end of my staff comments. Hopefully I addressed everything I hope to address with you today. And if you have questions, I'm available, and the applicant is also here today. We have Tim Harris in the audience and Rob Calgar with AGC Engineers.
Great. Does the applicant have any comments?
Good evening, Ron Calgar, AGC Engineers, 405 South Leonard, Liberty, Missouri. I want to start off by setting the record straight of last meeting. That did not go as I had hoped. I think I came across gruff and abrasive. And I wanted to apologize to you because I've been before this board for the last 20, 25 years, and I've never had a meeting go like that before. I think there were some other factors that kind of triggered that, but I wanted to apologize. If you felt like I talked down to you, I certainly was not trying to do that. I was just trying to explain to you what we believe your code says. So thank you. We worked hard with staff over this past month to get down to effectively three and a half items. I'm happy to talk about the landscape buffer. If you're happy with the proposal that we've agreed to with staff and the city, then I won't belabor that fact. The idea of that 15-foot being a private open space tract that will be effectively owned and maintained, not effectively, it will be owned and maintained by the city, is okay with us. The setback that will occur, there's 55 feet from the proposed right-of-way that Mr. Harris is proposing to dedicate and the west edge of Nation Road as it exists now. So there's already 55 feet of buffer. Now I know Nation Road may expand over time. And then this 15-foot protection zone would also be in effect. And if, Madam Chair, if you would prefer that we get feedback as I go, or if I'm just going to go ahead and give my, okay.
You can just go.
The 10-foot pedestrian way, as we'd said last time, the reason that we did not change that is Mr. Harris is adamant that that is not he doesn't feel like that enhances the development. He doesn't feel that that certainly enhances security of those lots. And I would like to, if I may, point out, and we tried to do this last time, but there were so many points that I'd like to hit it again just very briefly. Dave, if you could get to that sheet 4 of 6.
Okay, so not one of the attachments you sent? In the
It's
regular?
actually in the staff report. I mean, it's actually in the P and Z report. So if you could look at 4 of 6, maybe it would be the easiest if everybody has that available.
4?
So developer narrative and exhibits, sheet 4 of 6.
Am I in the right?
No, it should look like that.
Oh, the narrative.
So I believe what
There we
your code alludes to is, hey, on these long blocks, and there again, what we were trying to convey last month was, if something makes sense, absolutely, we can get our arms around that. But when there's just a code that is a code that doesn't make sense or doesn't seem applicable to this circumstance, it seems silly just to enforce that, just to be enforcing that. So what we did here is, and it makes sense to me because it's my exhibit, it may not make sense to anyone else tonight, but what we did was, the code speaks to, hey, if you've got these long blocks, people have to have a starting point and an ending point. And the code even talks about the ending points being a shopping center, a church, school is listed in there. School's actually the only thing that's really applicable to this, unless you want to walk miles to get to it. But from point A there on the left-hand side, and the font's a little bit small, but Dave, if you could. Yeah. So from point A over on the left-hand side to point B, and point B was just picked arbitrarily because that's essentially the nexus for the school. You can see that if you do the cut through in between the lots that Mr. Harris is adamant not to do, that it costs you 210 more feet to go, what I'll say the long way, the 3,760 feet way, rather than cut through in between 4 people's houses if you're going to the school, or you could be going to the amenity center within the subdivision. But 210 feet difference in travel paths. I walk a lot in subdivisions, and 210 is not that much. Then if you look at the other block, if we could.
Next page, down.
Yes, sir. So we did the exact same analysis looking at this block. This is there's 3 blocks that are over 900 feet. And you look at that, again, point A to point B, whether you do the cut through or you don't do the cut through, this one, you would actually be walking 30 feet more distance if you took the cut through in between the 4 residential houses. Go one more down. And the next one's basically a push. It's actually 5 feet still more, but 5 feet's very negligible. So that's why we're hoping that you can see the rationale of that, see the validity of that. The developer that's going to be putting his money into the development and having to market and sell those lots is saying he doesn't like that. That doesn't bode well with the buying public. On cul-de-sac length, there are so many examples throughout town. Actually, there's so many examples throughout town that have these blocks that don't have cut through. paths that I've never heard anybody knocking down the door of city council saying, why didn't we get a cut-through path in between our neighbor's house? But on the cul-de-sac length, there are 4 that are more than the code that says 500 feet. And they are, a couple of them are, 3 of them are nominally over the 500 feet, and David's listed those in the staff report. And then the Nova circle is 900 feet long. The reason for that is there's topographic challenges on this development. Whenever you look at it just like that in 2D, one would question, well, why'd you make the cul-de-sacs longer? Why didn't you connect a street? But whenever you look at it in 3 dimensions, which is how we have to build things, you will see, if you could go to the thumb drive now, Dave, under cul-de-sacs. And O2. So this has the topography, the contours turned on, as well as the drainage ways. So the contours are all those crazy little lines that are somewhat parallel to one another. Each one of those represents 1 foot of elevation change. The blue lines represent the drainage ways, and then the green is just treed areas. And I think if you recall last time I was here, I said, there's a reason that farmers, this farm is broken up into several little pods and nooks and crannies. And farmers, if they have the opportunity, want a square or rectangular piece of land to farm because it's just much more efficient and easier to plant and combine and do all of the things that they do. What we saw this as was an opportunity, and we had multiple layouts on this area right here because this was a challenging little area. We ultimately went with the 3 cul-de-sacs because they worked with the topography and the drainage ways the best. Now in doing that, we would run so the red lines represent, the dark red lines represent the 4 cul-de-sacs that are exceeding your 500 foot. But what we did is we took the 2 southernmost cul-de-sacs and went out a ridge. So they just walk out beautifully into these drainage treed waterway areas, and they will just be picturesque lots. The Kearney Fire Protection District has a code that says they don't look at cul-de-sac length, they look at number of homes. I recognize that your city subdivision code does not say, well, whatever the Kearney Fire Protection District, but the argument is we don't want these cul-de-sacs to be too long for life safety issues. But if the life safety folks are saying it's not really the cul-de-sac length that, and certainly if I'm wrong, Chief Pratt, correct me, but it's number of homes that have to be serviced on that street. And we've had some other projects that maximum number of homes is 30 houses. So Stella, up in the northeast corner, the 900-foot cul-de-sac has 24 houses on it. And that's the one that has the most. And then the other ones are less than that, 21, I think, and 18. So there again, that was the reason for that. That was the reason for the layout and the design. This looks a whole lot different whenever you, and I know you're not seeing it in 3 dimensions, but the contours as they get tighter means that the ground is getting steeper. And you can start to appreciate that connecting any one of those 3 cul-de-sacs on the south of that drainage way to Nova Circle on the north that comes off of 162nd Street is in fact a challenge. Mr. Pavlich said, not an impossibility. No, I totally agree, it's not an impossibility, but it does create a challenge that doesn't make for a great lot layout. We look through town, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but we had looked through town, and I know what was done yesterday or what was done 20 years ago can't be the litmus test for tonight. But there are in excess of 12 areas throughout town that have cul-de-sacs that are much more than 500 feet. Some of them are into the 1,300. Some entire subdivisions are a single entry point. So there again, we just didn't feel like to ask for 75 extra feet over some arbitrary 500-foot rule, so long as we were meeting the fire protection districts, less than 30 single-family residential homes was too big of an ask. I don't think that I belabored the point too much probably last month, so I will end it there. I think Mr. Harris may want to say a few things, and we are certainly available for questions.
Thank you.
Good evening. Tim Harris, Star Development, 244 West Mill. Just wanted to thank staff. We've worked closely with staff to address, we feel like, most of the issues here. We're in agreement with most everything. I think we're really down to a couple of issues. However, in regard to the setback and the additional open space we're deeding over to the city, we would like some covenant in there to where that would be maintained by the city in a good manner, to where we don't have a situation later where we have residents complaining about tall grasses and things like that. So if we could add that covenant, that would be great. The other issue that which Ron addressed, the walking trails between homes, from a development standpoint, and I've been doing this a long time, it's a no-no. People, those lots are hard to sell, and people don't want people or kids or whoever between their homes at all hours of the day and night. A good example of that is, we just had 4th of July. I mean, you could envision someone shooting off M80s at the side of your house at midnight, which people in Kearney do shoot fireworks to midnight and beyond. They love their fireworks. So that's our concern with the walking trails between homes. We don't like them. We can't sell the lots, and the end result, somewhere down the road, there'll be police called for people hanging out on those walking trails doing things they're not supposed to do. So that's our issue with that. In regard to the cul-de-sac links, I think Ron touched on that. The thing he didn't mention is there's several subdivisions that's been approved in the last few years under this same code without any hesitation. So I just wanted to mention that too. We don't feel it's a concern. Traditionally, with other municipalities, when we bring plats like this through, when the fire department, if they're in agreement and they sign off on it, that usually settles it. So hopefully that's the situation here. We feel like we've put together a nice subdivision here, and we think it's good for Kearney, and we hope you can approve it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or discussion, questions for the applicant?
What's going to be your requirements or on fences?
I'm glad you asked that question. The fences is one of the issues that we're real sticklers on, and there'll be one type of fence allowed, and it's a 5-foot wrought iron fence and black, and that's it. And it has to come off the back corners of the house with a survey, encompass the entire backyard, can't be a foot inside, can't cut the backyard in half. It has to encompass the entire backyard, and it has to be the same style throughout the development.
Okay.
The two biggest fights you have is trying to manage subdivisions is people want to change the roof colors, and we allow one roof color, and we allow one fence.
So you won't have any tunnels if you put.
Absolutely not. No, it has to be on the property line.
Fences.
What happens when you do that is, and you see that in some of these developments, where they'll bring the fence in 4 feet inside the property line. Then the neighbor next door puts his fence on the property line. We have a 4-foot no man's land that nobody mows, nobody maintains, and it's a disaster. The other problem you have is you hold your fence in 4 feet, and the neighbor mows and maintains that 4 feet as if it was his own yard, and after 7 years, he claims it's his, and you may lose. So that's why we're real sticklers on the type of fence and how the fence is installed. It has to go through an approval process before we even approve it.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Hey, Ron, I've got a couple questions here.
Yes, sir.
So it's hard for me to tell by that topo there, but I know you brought up last time, we were talking about collectors and Regency Drive being a freeway sometimes. Yep. So what is the possibility of moving this road into those cul-de-sacs, a lot or maybe two, and just, for lack of better, not knowing what the roads are called, but the little bitty stub cul-de-sac would be a little bit longer, and you would shorten up those, that's 701 and the 595, and you might even shorten up to 580.
Mm-hmm. That's a great observation, and here's the reason why we didn't do that. The city has a water tower that sets up in the upper left-hand corner of that plan. To serve that water tower, Mr. Laffey granted the city, or allowed the city, I don't know if he granted them, but he allowed the city to build a 12-inch water main out across there, willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Well, it was willy-nilly. It followed their layout. And Donnie, with the utilities department, wants direct access of that street, or wants direct access from the main street to the water main, rather than being back behind,
So you're just following the water main?
following the water main.
I think you kind of showed in this drawing, don't you, Ron?
I see it now
Yeah,
that you say
it's real
that. I see
faint.
the little hash lines here. I
Yeah,
didn't
they're-
see it before.
I mean, Dave, if we wanted to go to the utility plan, that would really highlight it.
Yeah, let me, sorry, I'm a little slow. Shrink first, then
Well, your
I need to get
cursor's
out and
about the
go over
size of
here,
a-
maybe. I wouldn't go here.
Your cursor's for everybody else's benefit, not for steering the ship. One more down, I think.
Maybe remember who
Yeah.
made that
So-
such a big hand on the cursor.
I think you were there. I think that was it.
Was it that one?
Yeah. So the baby blue, Kent, is the
Yeah.
water main. And you're probably gonna have to drill in on that a little bit too, Dave.
So you're still cutting under some of those lots with it?
Well, actually, we're gonna relocate that
You're gonna
water main.
relocate it, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the water mains pose, talking about 3D challenges, back about connecting the streets. The water main got put in a bean field at the time.
Yeah.
With no real consideration of grade, and now we're trying to get the roadway to fit that grade of the water main so that it's not too deep or too shallow, and it's proving to be quite a Rubik's Cube.
Okay.
But great observation, that's why we need, I mean, it also generally follows the ridge line out across there 2. That was the justification.
Okay. And then the 900-foot one,
Yes, sir.
and I don't know, maybe this is something that the city doesn't want or something, but why don't you just, I know you have to give up a lot, but why don't you just cut that right out to Nation Road?
So, so there's tremendous grade change
I know,
coming
it's
from the
pretty
end of
steep
the.
there.
It is, yeah, it is. In fact, it's probably steeper than Tim's gonna like, or the builder's gonna like those lots being there at the end of the cul-de-sac. Yeah, because that was our initial thought was, well, shoot, we'll just loop it through. I think
Awful close
Miss
to the
Daniel.
intersection.
What?
Awful close to the intersection.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, Shannon, was, Miss Daniel is also thinking that there might be a bigger improvement of that intersection of Nation, and having it so close would be bad.
Just to follow up, not to jump in,
Go
but
ahead.
what's the setback policy for intersection in driveways or road connections?
It's at least 150, I think is a number. I don't know. I can't answer your question.
I would
That is pretty close to that
That's
intersection.
pretty short.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably closer to a few hundred.
Yeah, I mean, I think good
Yeah.
access management would probably.
In mine would
put it
be
maybe
600
5.
feet,
I was gonna
so-
say 5, yeah.
I might be thinking of the driveway number.
Yeah.
Yeah, but whenever you're offsetting roads, I think it is like 185.
Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I was finished anyway.
Thank you, sir.
I just had a couple questions. We already have tracks A through D, and those are gonna be maintained by the HOA, correct?
Yes.
So why are we not gonna maintain that additional 50-foot common ground buffer by the HOA?
So you wouldn't think about this whenever you start talking about a 25-foot sliver or a 15-foot sliver. I didn't calculate the 15-foot sliver, although we could probably prorate it and get it there. 25-foot is an extra 7 acres in a linear fashion through there. And that just seemed a little bit onerous. And there again, as Dave had alluded to, we still contend when we read that requirement that it's not required. But
My concern with the city maintaining it is the city does a lot of stuff really, really well, right? Maintaining a random strip of ground may not be the best thing that the city's gonna do. So I have concerns with the city maintaining it and being dedicated to the city. If the adjacent property owners maintain it, then you're gonna have, how many ever different.
Hodgepodge.
Hodgepodge.
Yep.
They're gonna wanna expand their yard into it. And if it's the HOA, there's some more safeguards there. It's the HOA property, just like any other common tract, there's some controls over. So
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the city taking control of that. Just for longevity, in 10 years from now, we're all moved on to different roles or different places. Is that going to fall through the cracks? There's some safeguards with the HOA on
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
and then the 10-foot pedestrian way, and that's a code requirement. Correct? Do we have? I understand that the developer doesn't like them. There's a road on the south side there, and I think you said it was Chisholm?
This street here, this north-south.
This one is Chisholm.
Yeah, can that not be continued through 2 blocks? Straight north, 2 blocks to break those 2 up? And then you wouldn't have a random pedestrian way, but you would have broken blocks with a roadway through there. So we'd be meeting the intent of the shorter blocks, increased pedestrian way, better traffic access. Was that considered?
So there's quite a bit of, I'm gonna play the grade card again, and everybody's gonna roll their eyes. But there is quite a bit of elevation that from the dead end of Chisholm now, coming up the hill. Gosh, there's probably 30 foot of grade change there. So not the way we wanted to lay the development out. Probably not impossible. We didn't look at that, to be completely honest. And there again, on this one, you have a code that actually says that. It's just always a head scratcher for me whenever I say, to what real benefit? What do you gain out of that? Other than more infrastructure, yeah, Tim gets to pay for it and build it initially, but then the city gets to maintain it into perpetuity.
Right. So I count about 20 feet in grade change there on these.
Over both blocks?
Yep. The intersection of Chisholm and.
Yeah, if you've got the topo map.
Yeah. Well, I understand we have a code, the code says that, we gotta draw the line in the sand somewhere, so sometimes the code, maybe it makes sense to go 35 miles down the street, but the law says 30, right? So unless we have an avenue around that, which I don't know that we do, we need to meet that code. So I would really, be interested to see if that could be done there. Cul-de-sac length, it's marginal. I'm fine with cul-de-sac length. Sometimes that's just how the topography lays out. It is what it is. The one thing that I am concerned with is you're somewhat making two separate neighborhoods here with the way the layout is, and sometimes that's just what happens.
Yeah.
With that northeasternmost cul-de-sac, it really segregates those homes. There's no connection to the rest of the subdivision. Was there any consideration given of some kind of pedestrian connection? Because how are they going to get, you guys have a pool out there, right?
Yes, there is.
So how are they going to get from there to the pool without having to walk on the arterial?
Yeah. Well, not to be facetious, but what I see in most, I almost got ran over. I ran home to walk, and I got almost ran over by a golf cart with a mom and taking some kids up to the swimming pool and then the library. So that's probably how it works.
Right.
But no, to your point, it does somewhat segregate that. I think that very well may, although it's still 75-foot lots, that very well may develop into a different type of development, type of house, a little bit more secluded, maybe a little bit higher end house on that particular cul-de-sac, because that's going to be looking out over that tract A, which is going to be a flooded, wet lake. So. And then on the, so you had made a good point on the, on the landscape buffer. I guess I would just like to say HOAs get a little fuzzy as time goes on. Cities have been around since 1856. So I know the HOA that I live in, every year it gets just a little bit
It can.
ragged on the edges.
Yeah. They're hit and miss.
Yeah.
I understand.
Absolutely. I mean, Mr. Harris would like to.
And I'd like to address that one. As far as the 7 acres along Nation Road and the 25-foot strip, I think we came to a nice agreement with the city staff that the city would actually get that. The problem we had with that, and Ron just mentioned it, you can overload these HOAs and they're always broke. Every HOA I've ever been involved with, they barely have enough money to get by. If you try to do a special assessment, people come unglued on special assessments. And if you overtax them, 90% of the monies go to the pool. when you have your HOA meetings, everybody shows up and they want to talk about the pool. You know, you have quite a bit of common area within this development. When you add 7 acres to be mowed and maintained, my guess is that's at least $1,500 a week to mow and maintain that by an HOA. And I can tell you, they simply can't afford it. And you've got situations where HOAs goes bust. We don't want to set a new development up with that idea in mind. And if we did, if we put 7 acres on there, I think you're going to come to that conclusion at some point.
What's the total common area acreage?
I've got that.
And then while you're looking that up, so 7 acres is the 25-foot number.
Yes, the
Right,
7
so-
acres, there's 5 acres along Nation
If we
Road.
dropped it to the 15 feet,
And then
that's about
when you-
60% of that 7 acres, which would really drop that 7 acres to 4.2 acres.
Well,
So we're
you,
talking significantly less than 7 acres.
I think Ron did the calculation, on Nation Road alone, it was right at 5 acres and 2 acres along 162nd,
At the 15 feet?
at the 25.
That was 25.
Yeah.
25 feet that we're granting to, we're deeding the additional 25
Right.
feet to the city.
What I'm saying is 7 acres, right, if we drop it, then that's 25 feet. If we drop that down to 15 feet, 15 feet is only 60% of that 7 acres, right? So to calculate it out, back into that, that drops that 7 acres to really 4.2 acres.
And we would be satisfied if the city was agreeable to 15 feet rather than 25 feet. We would be satisfied with that as well.
With taking the 15 feet in the HOA,
Absolutely.
I would be much more comfortable voting for it if you took that 15 feet.
Yeah,
into the
if we
HOA.
had a 15-foot green space that would belong to the HOA, so that would essentially give you about, from the pavement right now, about 65 feet to the property line. And you know, what's going to happen here is they're not going to just maintain that 15-foot strip. If we're going to maintain it, we're going to maintain the entire area because we want it to look good as the front door to our neighborhood. So when we calculated how much there was to maintain, that's where we came up with that calculation. But if you drop that to 15 feet, we're on board.
And that's what we have in here, so.
Yeah.
Just, okay. We'll strike that. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
I don't really
Did you find that,
have,
I'm sorry, did you find that number overall?
You know what, I don't
Okay.
have that.
I was just curious that, adding 4 more acres to it, is it really,
Yeah.
I mean, 4 acres not insignificant, but in the larger scheme of it, is it, I mean, you do have quite a bit of open space tracks out there, so I don't know that a little bit more.
Yeah.
um,
Where I'm a little fuzzy is the water area, obviously, that's not gonna get mowed, so.
Yeah.
So I don't have that less the watershed.
Right.
So those are big tracks. Now, a lot of that'll, well, I would say it would go up natural, but Tim likes to keep things mowed tightly, so, most of those
Yeah, maybe.
will probably get mowed.
Yeah,
I have one thing, basically. Obviously, the big sticking point at this point is the walkways. I don't disagree with you in what you're saying. I live in the subdivision just south of this one, and we have one walkway, and it would always make me uncomfortable walking between the two houses. I get it. But it is part of our code, and I don't know that we can go around that code. So I guess my question is, why did you guys not consider doing a planned community where we had a little more leeway to do some of these things?
Yeah. So yeah, great question. This land was already zoned R1. The entire parcel was zoned. So anytime something's zoned, we try to avoid rezoning it. So, I mean, that was the real reason. And frankly, Kathy, every subdivision that we've brought in here, every subdivision that, I mean, I would challenge anybody, not that it's your challenge to accept, where are there these cross-access walkways? The code hasn't changed, but yet now that we're at the table, the enforcement is changing. And that is frustrating to us whenever we've been, Mr. Harris has been doing development in here for longer than I've been doing development work. And now all of a sudden, the code's being enforced to the letter of the law. And that's kind of the frustrating part. The reason it didn't get presented that way was Tim's just adamant that he doesn't like him. It sounds like you can appreciate that. So that was why, and that was why we didn't rezone it, was just opening up Pandora's box.
So I think the only thing I would probably just add a couple things, which is, obviously, and I've said this before, I definitely also understand the walkway issue and appreciate the frustration in it. But as Dr. Angelou says, know better, do better. Now that we are much clearer on that's the code, that's the code. I do have concerns about the little cul-de-sac that's up by itself, because you are not wrong about the golf carts, because they love them. That would require someone to get on their golf cart and drive on Nation Road, or walk over, or basically they're gonna have to get in an actual vehicle to get over there. I mean, I guess if you buy there, you know that's what you're getting into, but it does sort of just break up what's this great full community and leaves it kind of isolated up there. That's really all I had to.
Ron, you alluded to that 900-foot cul-de-sac thing developing out maybe to a different, something different. And so I guess my question is, why don't you just go ahead and make those estate lots and put a gate up and call it good? Because that will, I mean, instead of 24 houses, I don't know how big those lots are, but.
Yeah, they're 75s now.
75 by.
Yeah.
What, 150 or?
Yeah, about 150, yeah.
So, you know, you would,
Even to get to
you
90s.
obviously wouldn't cut in half, but,
Yeah.
that would, you know, the whole concern supposedly of these long cul-de-sacs is the amount of people that are in there and the city services trying to, ambulance, fire department or police, whatever. Well, if you cut that down to 18 or 16, nice houses.
Yeah.
Nice, really nice ones. You know,
I think that's a good suggestion that you've got. That's actually something we've contemplated, is gating it, making it a private street.
yeah,
Backing up to the water there, those are going to be the nicer homes. So, you know, by chance, they're 100, 125-foot frontages,
Yeah.
150-foot deep. Similar to like Mirabella is,
Right.
where you get the nicer homes. So in reality, that's probably what we'll do there. We have no problem agreeing to that right now, so.
Just I mean, it brings up a whole nother set of questions for me. A 75-foot wide lot is typically, what's the cost on that?
Lot
Well, you
costs,
sell
lot costs.
Oh, moving target in today's market.
Yeah, the last numbers I've heard, it's about $1,200 to $1,600 a linear foot.
Yeah.
So if you're making a 125-foot wide lot, that is an expensive lot.
Yeah.
we have some.
I hope that number's high, or
It's
We're
probably
in
high for
trouble.
Kearney. It may be a little high for Kearney.
It's
but-
surprising where there's buyers that are coming to Kearney wanting out of the city that
Yeah.
want the upper bracket home, and the idea of a gated street's kind of a big deal to them. I mean, it's,
I think that would kind of eliminate the,
Well, and it's not really our job to tell him
no,
No,
What
no,
size
no, no,
lots
and
is-
that, I would say, it brings up a whole nother, that still doesn't alleviate any concerns of segregating and golf carts onto 162nd or Nation Road and how they're gonna get to the pool. They're still gonna be part of the same HOA. So that really, I mean, it makes a nicer product, absolutely. Doesn't really alleviate the concerns with the connectivity.
more than likely, if we do a gated community on that upper street, That'll be a separate
Separate
plat, and they'll have their own HOA, and wouldn't be part of the dues into the other neighborhood. The other piece of that, Ron's correct. Any of these developments we do, and definitely in a situation like that, you're a good half mile or more away. They're gonna get in their car, they're gonna get in their golf cart, they're gonna drive to that pool, pull out their floaties and their towels and go to the pool. It's rare that people walk to these pools. If you go by a lot of them on a busy day, you'll see 20 or 30 cars there.
My concern is not the adults driving from there to there, it's the 13, 14, 15-year-olds that are home over the summer that don't drive.
Yeah.
How are they gonna get from A to B
True.
without walking on an arterial?
Well, that's the same kids we have over in Valley View,
Yeah.
across from Sprouts, that are at Starbucks in their parents' golf cart at 13, 14 years old. They'll be on the sidewalk going right
I
there.
understand, not everyone's gonna have a golf cart.
No, I understand.
Then we have golf carts on arterials, which it's a whole nother concern.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I just want to make one more comment, and I don't want to beat the dead horse too much, but just because historically, something's been done one way and maybe it was done incorrectly, doesn't mean we need to continue that incorrect. And we have to apply the code as it is. We've identified the issue and we have to move forward. And unfortunately, you were the first one, or one of the first ones to come through on that. So I know you've worked with staff quite a while to get this to where we're at. So I do commend you on that. So I think we've gotten to a lot better place, and we're working through that. So
Thank you.
All right, anybody want to make a motion?
So I can make a motion.
Do we know what we wanna, what are we all gonna agree? Because it sounds like all of us have a little bit here or a little bit there, and we've talked about several different things. Well, okay, we'll go ahead and change that. And
Well, I guess
do this.
what we could do is close the public hearing, and just open up a comment period,
Yeah.
Well,
discussion.
There is no public hearing tonight.
Okay, well then we can just have discussion on what we like and what we don't like, and then we can make the motion, and then someone can make a motion to amend how we see
I
fit.
suppose, yeah.
My comments, I mean, I think I would strike comment or condition number 2. I would strike the dedicated to the city portion out of that. We've agreed to take the 15-foot wide space into the HOA. That alleviates my concern with there. The 10-foot wide pedestrian paths, while it may not, be the developer's desire, our hands are kind of tied. Not kind of, they are tied by the code. If that's not something the development community wants, maybe they should move, seek a code amendment to change that. But at this point, we have to go by what the code says today, and so that one, we're kind of stuck with that. The rest of them I'm fine with, so.
We're gonna not do the Connect Stella and Nova Circle.
Oh, yeah, I would strike that one.
And we can add, Tim has agreed to go ahead and say that that's going to be developed differently, but tell me again what you were saying about Nova.
What I'd like to do is make that a private street, and then we'll gate that and make that a state lots. When Ron cleans this all up and brings it back through, we'll call that something else. It'll be a separate part of the same development, but it's really not part of the development.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be possible to do something simpler and just maybe reduce the number of lots on the plan? Because that'd be something, if it were to be private at some point in the future, I guess.
I mean,
My thought is
certainly do that.
proposing that to the board at a final plat, and this would be kind of more tied to the layout. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Do you wanna even include that in this? If you're gonna do a separate deal on it, does it make any sense to just slice that out of this
Just
for now? Or
strike the connecting piece and
I'm
just leave it.
asking.
Oh, I almost thought it made sense to go ahead and show it on the preliminary plat, and that way they can move forward later without.
With a condition,
True.
that, with the final plat, it would be addressed.
What if it stayed public and we just make the lots a little,
That's what
you're saying,
you and
right?
I are thinking the same there.
I would prefer a public street. I mean, I don't like gated
and maybe
streets,
you would prefer
but
private street?
I'm open.
it's up
Yeah.
to you guys.
The private streets are are attractive, but I'm fine with either one.
The problem that I have private streets is maintenance, right? You're saying that 4 more acres of HOA common ground is gonna bankrupt the HOA. What is an entire street gonna do?
Are you responsible for snow removal and
I
all
mean,
of
we
that
got
at that
maintenance of the
point?
cul-de-sac, maintenance of the snow removal, maintenance of the curbs, maintenance of all the infrastructure in there. I'm assuming there are private streets built to public standard. So you got an entire public street out there that now the HOA is assuming responsibility for. If we can't, if we have concerns with another 4 acres of common ground mowing, I really have concerns with maintaining the street, because that is significantly more expensive to maintain than some open space.
I agree totally with you, and I'm fine with staff's recommendation. He wants to keep it public, make the lots bigger. And to your point, Marabella, not that it really needs it, we're doing a mill and overlay tomorrow. It's $40-something thousand, so.
Yeah, that's probably cheap.
And what you end up with, your clientele's a little bit different there. When they have to get a special assessment for, $3,500, $4,000 a year, it doesn't shock them as it would your average homeowner.
Right, no, I understand.
They're paying for that.
I don't like private streets.
Yeah, no, I get it. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
I understand.
There's just maintenance, because then is the private street in a tract? Is it the property line in the center of the road? Then who maintains what? It's just, long-term, it's difficult.
So on, we're devoting a lot of energy on Nova,
Yeah.
but on Nova, that one I believe has 24 lots.
Yes.
Yeah.
20.
So there again, it's not in any kind of violation of Kearney Fire Protection District, because they'll allow up to 30. So we're 6 under that, fairly substantial number. So, Tim, if you want to make the lots
100 feet.
100 by whatever deep.
Yes.
So you would want us just to strike the condition of connecting, but add a condition that the lots on Nova were a minimum 100 wide?
Yeah, and we'll draw that up and represent that for ultimate signatures. Is that how this will work?
That'd probably
Why don't
You
why
do
don't
have to
say
submit
that?
a revised preliminary plat that has
That was
all
one of your
the conditions
conditions,
listed.
Yeah. So we would be submitting that back, Shannon, for you. I guess it wouldn't come to a vote, it would just
It
be.
would come
Yeah.
to staff.
And I'm looking at staff's
It would come to staff.
Staff all right with that?
So I would say, sounds to me like everybody's like, let's not make the connection, but in lieu of the connection, reduce the number of lots so it's less, that connection's less of an impact. Minimum 100-foot wide lots along Nova.
Correct.
So it says 70, are they drawn 75 now?
They're drawing 75.
Okay, so they're 25% down,
Yeah,
so lose about 5 lots maybe?
yeah. Cul-de-sacs always get weird, so.
Yeah.
I think I got it.
Think you got it?
I think so.
Yeah, I didn't jot any notes down because I want,
No, I got it.
that's when I'll write.
All right. Although the conditions are not numbered. So that makes it a little more.
You can number them.
Would you like, we could number them.
No, it's fine. All right.
Entertain a
Any more
motion?
comments?
Oh, I don't have any more.
All right. So
Chastain, you ready?
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask one question to the attorney, though. Is it best to amend I want to do this the cleanest way, because there's a lot going on here. So is it best to make the motion and then make a second motion to amend, or make the motion amending the conditions from the start?
So if I understand correctly, these conditions are in the staff report, correct? Except for the one you changed,
Correct.
correct? So no motion has been made at this point, so you could approve it subject to
these
the
amendments.
conditions in the staff report, or you could say subject to the
Okay,
conditions,
amending, yada, yada.
yes.
Okay, okay, I got it, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, I moved that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the Westwood preliminary plat subject to the conditions listed in the staff report with the amendments, amending condition number 2, striking the dedication to the city, and that the HOA assume ownership of that 15-foot wide space, striking and eliminating condition number 5, that Stella Circle and Nova Circle be connected, and adding a condition that there's a minimum 100-foot wide lots on Nova Circle.
So just to clarify that, on the pie-shaped lots, I look at that at the building line.
At the
front
line,
building
yeah. That's why I would look at it.
Okay,
I'm sure that's written in the code. That's how we measured on a cold sock. Okay.
We have a motion, do I have a second? Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. So we have the no new business, the monthly permit report, it's in the packet.
Yep, nothing extra.
Anybody have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, all in favor? Aye.
You're hammer happy tonight.
Getting pretty free with that hammer.
I know.